In our previous module, we had a lot of discussions around the prerequisites and some of the planning considerations for MDM, MAM, Intune, and other products that allow you to manage your mobile devices. In this module, we're going to get hands-on. We're going to focus on managing the mobile device management, or MDM, within Microsoft 365. So the three topics that we're going to talk about in this module are going to include the MDM integration with Azure AD. That's a huge part of the auto-enrollment capabilities with MDM. We'll also walk through the steps necessary to set the MDM authority that we discussed in the previous module, and we'll look at how to configure the device enrollment limits. Prior to completing these steps, I'll have some additional information I'll share with you regarding the configuration of these different items. So let's talk about MDM integration with Azure AD. And as we've discussed, we've got a couple different types of devices. We have our personal devices and our company-owned devices. Within the company-owned devices, when we're talking about integration with Azure AD, we can actually join Windows to a traditional Active Directory environment, a non-Azure AD environment. However, to allow the enrollment process to take place, we'll have to configure the hybrid Azure AD domain join, and we'll talk about that in just a couple moments here. Or another option is to join Windows to Azure AD directly. That's if we don't have the traditional AD environment on premises. Our personal devices, we can add a Microsoft Work account to Windows. By doing so, it allows us to access organization apps as well as all the resources, and it will provide an opportunity for the users to enroll their device in MDM. However, the keywords, it provides them an opportunity. They can decline to auto-enroll the device in MDM. So this is where we talked about training and communications are necessary so the users know what is expected of them if they're going to use their personal device to access the company resources. And we have a few different tools to manage these devices. If we're using the traditional Active Directory domain, we're going to use group policies for managing devices. We can also use the System Center Configuration Manager for our traditional Active Directory domain environment. However, we're going to use MDM to manage our Azure AD joined devices because that provides all the functionality that we've been talking about, including the auto-enroll and the ability to manage the limits or restrictions on those devices. There are some prerequisites for the MDM integration with Azure Active Directory. Let's take a peek at those. And our first one is we need an active MDM subscription with a provider. Well, by default, we're going to be using Intune, but we're not limited to using Intune. We can actually go to the Azure Active Directory App Gallery to see if there's a third-party tool that we want to use instead of Intune. Another prerequisite is to configure the MDM settings. This includes the URLs for the MDM terms of use, so the users have to view them and understand what the expectations that you have of them when using MDM. There are also some configuration settings for MDM discovery and compliance. And lastly, while we're configuring MDM settings, we can configure the scope of the devices. If you want to use auto device enrollment, it's going to require Azure Active Directory Premium P1 or higher. And there's currently a P2 out there as well. If you have your on-prem AD environment and you want to be able to use domain join, you can't just do it with Active Directory on-prem by itself. You need to configure hybrid with Azure AD. And after doing so, you'll use group policies for configuring devices for a hybrid Azure Active Directory domain join. So it is possible to configure domain join for Active Directory on-prem by implementing hybrid Azure Active Directory. Let's step out and take a look at the configuration options for an Azure AD integration. So here we are in the portal.azure.com, as you can see up top, and I'm on the home page. Gives me information to the right about who I'm logged in as and my company name, all that cool stuff. So notice at the top we have some options. Start with a free trial, manage Azure Active Directory, which is where we'll be heading, access student benefits, and if we scroll down we have Azure Services, navigation options, tools, and useful links. Let's go back to the top here. Let's click View under Manage Azure Active Directory. And you can see there's my company name. Here's azmtp.onmicrosoft.com. I'm a global administrator, which is one of the requirements. And I'm running Azure AD Premium P2. Remember, we need P1 or P2. Now, on the left-hand side, it has my services. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And you're going to see we have an option called Mobility, MDM, and MAM. So I'm going to open that up. And as I come in here, you're going to see Microsoft Intune's already loaded. If it's not loaded, or if you want to bring in another application, you simply click on Add Application. It'll bring up the available applications you have, In fact, let me show you this real quick. On-premises MDM. You can use Microsoft Azure AD to enable user access to on-premises MDM application. It does require an existing on-prem MDM application subscription. You can change the name if you want to. You can set up a URL and logo if you want to, and then add that to your applications. We'll go ahead and close out on this. I just wanted to show you that while we were in here. We'll go back to Microsoft Intune. And you're going to see when we come in here, we've got really two categories on the left-hand side. We have MDM user scope, terms of use, discovery, and compliance. Below that, we have the MAM, user scope, terms of use, discovery, and compliance URLs. 3 of the 4 configuration options for both MDM and MAM are specifying URLs. Now let's talk about the user scope. MDM user scope. Notice it's set to none, as is MAM. We could set it to all. Now everyone will be able to auto-enroll. We'd have to save it out for that to take place. Or we could click some and specify groups. So I'm going to go ahead and click on groups. And notice at the top, if you have several groups, you can search for them. I'm going to grab the top one, 70-346 group. And then I'll click select to save that. And now we've specified that any users within this 70-346 group, we want them to use this MDM terms of use URL, the discovery URL, and the compliance URL for MDM. These are the default settings, by the way. And if you start messing around with these and you mess them up, you can restore default MDM URLs right here. But if you want to have something specific to your organization, this is where you can customize the URLs for MDM, and down below is where you'll customize them for MAM. I'll go ahead to the top left and click Save. And you'll see that on the right-hand side it says it's updated the Microsoft Intune settings successfully. Now we've specified the MDM user scope for this group called 70-346 students. So this is where and how we configure MDM to integrate with Azure AD.